In the middle of a dense Cambodian jungle, under layers of thick moss and silent time, a city the size of modern-day Los Angeles was hiding. Not buried, not forgotten, just missing. Until one day, a team scanning the ground with lasers caught a shape, then a pattern, then an entire civilization sleeping under the trees. No one even knew it was there. Or imagine this, in the heart of the Andes, a farmer trips over a flat stone. It's carved, too perfect to be natural. He brushes off the dirt and finds a staircase, one that hadn't seen sunlight in over 1,000 years. That staircase? It led to a lost city in the clouds. These aren't stories pulled from fantasy novels. They're real. Entire cities once alive with festivals, kings, street vendors, lovers, now silent, swallowed by jungle, sand, or sea. Some were hidden on purpose, others simply vanished, like they were never there to begin with, until now. This is the strange, almost magical world of lost cities rediscovered. And here's the thing, they're not just ruins, they're time capsules. Frozen moments from civilizations that were often more advanced, more connected, and way weirder than we imagined. Some had complex plumbing systems before Rome. Others used star maps more precise than modern GPS. One even had pyramids older than the pyramids of Giza. Yeah, wrap your head around that. But here's where it gets really weird. Some of these cities weren't found with shovels or hammers. They were discovered by accident. A glitch in satellite data, a farmer's dog digging too deep, a drone flying just a little too far off course. One was uncovered because of a drought, when a hidden stone outline emerged in the drying mud, like the earth itself was trying to whisper a secret. And then there's the unexplainable stuff. The places that seem to appear where they shouldn't. Cities found in the middle of nowhere, with no roads, no signs, nothing to explain how anyone got there. Structures carved so precisely that even today engineers are baffled. It's like someone left us breadcrumbs from a forgotten past, or a warning. These discoveries are rewriting history, or maybe, just maybe, reminding us that history was never quite what we thought. But for every lost city found, 10 more might still be out there, beneath the Amazon, under the sea, hidden inside cliffs. Some are being watched by satellites as we speak. Others may have already been seen, but mistaken for hills, rocks, or shadows. And maybe, just maybe, there are cities we'll never find. Civilizations that vanished without a trace, leaving behind only stories, myths, or strange symbols carved into the stone. This journey isn't about treasure or tombs. It's about unraveling the greatest mystery of all: who we were and what we lost along the way. So, if you're ready to peer into the past, not the dusty textbook kind, but the raw, echoing kind that makes your skin crawl just a little, stick around. Grab your seats, turn off the lights, and maybe pour yourself a cup of tea. Things are about to get weird. The jungle whispers. Deep in the jungle of Cambodia, the trees hum with life. Birds screech overhead. Monkeys argue in the branches. The ground is thick with vines, roots, and centuries of decay. To the untrained eye, it's just wild forest. But to a group of scientists flying overhead with a laser scanner, it's something else entirely. A line, then a square, then an entire city etched beneath the jungle floor. They weren't looking for it, not really. Just scanning the ground with LiDAR, a kind of laser tech that maps what's hiding beneath thick vegetation. And suddenly, boom, there it was. Streets, canals, giant reservoirs, entire temple complexes. a lost city asleep beneath the jungle for centuries, just casually chilling under some trees. That's the thing about lost cities. They're everywhere and nowhere. Sometimes they vanish because nature reclaims them, like moss growing over an old pair of shoes until you forget you even left them outside. Other times, they're buried in sand, drowned under rising seas, or simply erased from memory by war, disease, or some very bad royal decisions. But here's the real kicker. We used to think these cities were gone forever. Dusty myths, wild tales passed around campfires. But now, we're finding them again. And it's turning everything we thought we knew about history upside down. Let's be clear, these aren't small villages. We're talking about massive, complex civilizations. Cities with wide boulevards, plumbing systems, observatories, marketplaces, and stadiums. Some were bigger than New York City, and no one had a clue they existed until recently. Which begs the obvious question, how do you lose an entire city? You'd be surprised. Turns out the planet is pretty good at covering its tracks. A jungle will swallow buildings in a few decades. A desert wind can erase walls and roads like they were drawn in the sand. And the sea? The sea loves a good mystery. One minute you've got a thriving coastal city, the next, it's part of the coral reef. Sometimes, though, we just forget. Generations pass, languages change, people move on. What was once the heart of a kingdom becomes a pile of rocks no one looks at twice. And eventually, the stories that kept the memory alive fade too, until someone stumbles across it. It might be an archaeologist with high-tech gear, or a farmer digging a new well, or a tourist who takes the wrong hiking path and finds a staircase that shouldn't be there. These are the moments when history whispers back. Let's go back to that city in Cambodia. It's called Mahendraparvata. Most people haven't heard of it, and that's kind of the point. For centuries, it was just a legend. Historians suspected something big had once existed on Phnom Kulen Mountain, not far from the famous Angkor Wat. But the jungle was too dense to explore, and nothing visible poked through the trees. Then came the LiDAR scan. And suddenly, a hidden world appeared. Roads, buildings, temples, arranged in neat grids across the mountaintop. It wasn't just a city, it was a carefully planned capital, possibly the first of the Great Khmer Empire. And no one had laid eyes on it in over 1,000 years. Wild, right? But Mahendraparvata isn't the only one. Far from it. All around the world, we're uncovering cities once thought to be myths or forgotten entirely. In South America, in the Middle East, underwater in the Mediterranean, even in the Amazon rainforest, which, until recently, most scholars believed was too hostile for large-scale civilization. Turns out, we were wrong. Very wrong. Satellite images and ground scans are now revealing long-lost urban networks in the Amazon, with roads, bridges, canals, and entire neighborhoods hidden beneath centuries of forest. And we're not just talking about one or two isolated communities, we're talking cities, plural, connected, planned. It's like the Earth has been playing the longest, most epic game of hide and seek, and we're just now catching up. And honestly, it's a little embarrassing. We spent centuries digging up Europe's castles and tombs, thinking that was the height of ancient sophistication. Meanwhile, civilizations were out here aligning temples with stars, carving entire cities into rock faces, and building pyramids in places we didn't even think had enough stone. Some of them did it before the Great Pyramids of Egypt even existed. We used to think history was a straight line. You start small, build up, invent some cool stuff, and then move on to smartphones and space rockets. But these lost cities, they tell a different story. A messier one, a more fascinating one, a story of rise, fall, rebuild, repeat. Sometimes ancient people figured out things we still don't fully understand. Like how to cut massive stones so precisely they lock together without mortar. Or how to align an entire city with celestial events centuries into the future. Or how to farm sustainably for thousands of years without ruining the land. And then they vanished. That mystery, that silence, that's what keeps drawing us back. It's not just about cool ruins and buried treasure. It's about connection. These were real places, full of life. People laughed there, prayed there, fell in love there, lost their homes there. These ruins aren't just old buildings. They're echoes of entire human worlds that existed and then didn't. And we're only just starting to hear their voices again. So here's what we're going to do in this documentary. We're going on a journey, not just through time, but across continents, down forgotten paths, under jungles, into deserts, and beneath the sea. We'll visit some of the most mind-blowing rediscoveries in archaeological history. Places that shouldn't exist, but do. We'll meet empires that rewrote the rules, cities swallowed by earth and sea, civilizations that vanished without a trace, and technologies that raise one simple, haunting question. What did they know that we don't? But hey, don't worry, this isn't a dusty classroom lecture. We're keeping things chill. A little mystery, a little wonder, and the occasional, wait, what? moment. So buckle up. The past is about to get personal. Grab your tea, dim the lights, and maybe turn your phone on silent. Because the jungle's whispering again. And this time, we're listening.
Why cities vanish. Let's be honest, losing a city sounds ridiculous. It's not your car keys or a pair of socks. Cities are massive. They have roads, houses, markets, temples. You'd think they'd be hard to misplace. And yet, it keeps happening. So why do cities vanish? Well, it turns out nature doesn't care how grand your palace is or how many statues you built of yourself. Give it a few decades and vines will crawl over your throne. Sand will bury your streets. The sea will casually roll in one afternoon and turn your temples into beachfront property. Sometimes it's nature. Sometimes it's humans being humans. And sometimes it's a little bit of both. Let's start with the dramatic stuff. Volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, droughts. Nature has a flair for chaos. Take Pompeii, for example. One day it was a thriving Roman city full of bakers, poets, and wealthy wine snobs. The next, Mount Vesuvius explodes and buries everyone under volcanic ash. No one could escape. And for nearly 1,700 years, the whole city just sat there, sealed like a time capsule. Or think about Helike in ancient Greece. One night, an earthquake strikes, then a tsunami follows. Boom, entire city gone. For centuries, people thought it was a legend until divers started finding statues and coins on the sea floor. Mother Nature doesn't mess around. But not all vanishing acts are so explosive. Sometimes cities just fade. Like Angkor, once the capital of the powerful Khmer Empire with over 1 million people living there. Massive temples, huge reservoirs, monumental architecture. Then over time, it emptied out. The jungle took over. The city slowly disappeared from the world's memory until only a few monks and locals remained. Historians still argue about what happened. Was it war, drought, overpopulation, climate change? Maybe all of it. Or maybe the people just got tired of living in a high-maintenance city and moved somewhere with better parking. Jokes aside, environmental changes are a big deal. Rivers shift, rainfall drops, crops fail, and when your entire civilization depends on water to grow rice or keep your sacred lake full, you've got a problem. The Maya knew this all too well. Their cities were massive, some of the largest in the ancient Americas. But over time, droughts hit, trade routes collapsed, internal wars broke out. Suddenly, these once glorious cities were being abandoned one by one, left to crumble in the rainforest. And then, of course, there's the human factor. Invaders, civil wars, bad leadership, economic collapse, or, just regular drama. Cities are fragile things. It only takes a few wrong moves or one ambitious conqueror to bring the whole thing down. History is full of kings and generals who saw a thriving city and thought, yeah, I'll take that. And they did. The ancient city of Nineveh, wiped out by enemies. Carthage, burned to the ground by Rome. Tenochtitlan, conquered by the Spanish, drained, paved over, and renamed Mexico City. Some cities vanish because they're destroyed, others because they're transformed so completely we forget what was there before. But then you have the weird ones.
The cities that seem to disappear without any real explanation. No volcano, no war, no obvious disaster, just gone. Empty buildings, silent walls, no one left to tell the story. These are the ones that keep archaeologists awake at night. Like the mysterious site of Mohenjo-Daro in present-day Pakistan, once a thriving city of the Indus Valley civilization. Neat grids, advanced drainage, even public baths. Then, sometime around 1900 BCE, people started leaving. No signs of war, no major destruction. Just a slow, quiet exit. Why? No one knows for sure. Or the city of Ubar, long spoken of in Arab legend as the Atlantis of the Sands, said to have been a wealthy trading hub, full of towers and riches, until it vanished beneath the desert. For centuries, people called it a myth, until a NASA satellite picked up some strange lines under the sand in Oman. Turns out, Ubar was real, and it really was swallowed by the earth, possibly collapsing into an underground sinkhole. Sometimes, cities are hidden on purpose. Religious sites, secret temples, sacred grounds, all buried to protect them, or perhaps to erase them. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey was deliberately buried by its own builders over 11,000 years ago. Why? Maybe it was sacred. Maybe it was forgotten. Maybe we'll never know. And this brings us to a strange idea. Maybe cities don't vanish because they fail. Maybe some were always meant to disappear. Let that sink in. Some ancient cultures saw time and place very differently than we do. They didn't build for eternity, they built for the cycle. They didn't fear collapse, they saw it as part of the story. So when a city fell, it wasn't always a tragedy. Sometimes it was a transformation, a ritual end, a rebirth somewhere else. Of course, for modern archaeologists, that's maddening. But for storytellers like us, it's perfect. It means every rediscovered city has not just bricks and stones, but layers of emotion, layers of mystery, and that feeling of, how did we forget this? Today, we're using satellites, drones,
laser scanners, even artificial intelligence to track down the places we forgot. But the reasons they vanished, those are often still up in the air. Some cities were erased by time, some by enemies, some by shifting Earth, and others? Well, maybe they just decided to slip into the shadows. But here's the good news. They left clues. Sometimes it's a crumbling wall sticking out of the grass, or a strange shape in satellite photos. Sometimes it's a rumor, a myth, a local legend passed down through generations. You follow the whispers, you read the land, you look where no one else thought to look. And suddenly, the lost begins to surface. In the next chapters, we'll dive into the wildest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping rediscoveries in modern archaeology. Cities that were lost for centuries and found again with the help of science, satellites, luck, and a little bit of stubborn curiosity. But for now, let this chapter settle. Cities vanish, but not forever. The Earth hides them well, but never completely.
Angkor Wat's Forgotten Empire. If you were walking through the Cambodian jungle in the 1800s, you'd probably be sweating through your shirt, swatting mosquitoes, and asking yourself why you didn't just stay home. But then, through a break in the trees, you'd see something that makes you freeze. Massive stone towers. Ornate carvings, faces staring out from the jungle, half swallowed by vines. A temple so detailed and huge, it looks like something from a dream. Welcome to Angkor Wat. Today, Angkor Wat is Cambodia's pride and global tourism magnet. But for a long time, most of the world had no clue it was even there. It was just another mystery wrapped in leaves and silence. But here's the twist. Angkor Wat is just one piece of something much bigger. Way bigger. Like an empire-sized jigsaw puzzle. Back in its glory days, the Khmer Empire wasn't just building temples, it was constructing one of the largest, most advanced cities in the world. Massive highways, intricate canals, huge reservoirs, sophisticated architecture. And for centuries, it thrived. Then, like so many other great civilizations, it vanished into the trees. Let's rewind a bit. The Khmer Empire rose around the 9th century CE and peaked between the 11th and 13th centuries. At its height, it controlled most of Southeast Asia. And right in the center of it all was Angkor, its capital. A city buzzing with priests, merchants, artists, farmers, and royalty. This wasn't just a jungle kingdom. This was a serious operation. The Khmer engineers built massive water systems called barrays that worked like giant reservoirs. These things weren't just pretty pools, they were part of a smart irrigation system that let them farm year-round. While other regions waited on rainy seasons, the Khmer were out there producing rice like it was going out of style. They carved epic temples like Angkor Wat and Bayon, not just as religious monuments, but as cosmic diagrams. Every layout, every tower, every moat was symbolic. The temple complexes were aligned with celestial events, sunrises, solstices, lunar cycles. It was like Google Calendar, but made of stone. And it worked. For hundreds of years, Angkor was the beating heart of a powerful empire. Then, silence. By the 1400s, Angkor was abandoned. The jungle crept in. The city disappeared from maps and memory. Local people still knew about the temples, of course, but to the outside world, it became a legend, a whisper, a forgotten story swallowed by leaves and time. Enter Henri Mouhot, a French explorer who discovered Angkor Wat in the 1860s. And yes, we're using air quotes around discovered because it's not like the locals didn't know it was there.
But Muhat's writings and sketches brought global attention to this mysterious stone city in the jungle. People were blown away. A giant temple complex in the middle of nowhere? Who built this? Why was it abandoned? What happened to the people? For over a century, archaeologists chipped away at the mystery, slowly uncovering temples and structures hidden beneath layers of dirt and vegetation. But then, in the early 2000s, something changed. We brought lasers to the jungle. More specifically, we brought LiDAR, light detection and ranging. It's like X-ray vision for the Earth. You fly over an area in a plane or drone, zap it with a laser, and get back a 3D map of what's hiding under the trees. When researchers scanned the area around Angkor Wat, they were stunned.
There were neighborhoods, canals, temples, roads, bridges, and even grid patterns, all buried under centuries of jungle. Entire cityscapes that had never been seen before. Angkor wasn't just a temple complex. It was a sprawling urban center, possibly bigger than modern-day Los Angeles. Even more impressive, the level of planning. Streets were laid out with precision. The canals and reservoirs were connected in ways that showed a deep understanding of hydrology and engineering. This wasn't just trial and error. This was a civilization that knew exactly what it was doing. But then comes the big question. Why did they leave? There's no simple answer, but there are theories. One idea is climate change. Sediment from the canals suggests a series of intense droughts, followed by catastrophic floods. Their brilliant water system may have been overwhelmed. No rain, then too much rain, then chaos. Another theory is political instability. As power shifted and enemies closed in, the empire may have fractured from the inside. Combine that with environmental stress, and it's a recipe for collapse. Whatever the reason, the people began to abandon the city. Slowly at first, then completely. The jungle took over, and Angkor faded from history. But here's what makes this rediscovery so powerful. For centuries, people assumed that complex civilizations only developed in certain parts of the world. Europe, the Middle East, maybe China. But Southeast Asia? That was supposed to be all rice paddies and small kingdoms. Angkor destroyed that narrative. The Khmer Empire proves that human brilliance is not limited by geography. It flourished with unique innovations, art, and spiritual ideas that rival anything in Rome or Greece. And now, thanks to modern tech, we're finally seeing the full picture. LiDAR didn't just uncover ruins, it changed how we think about ancient urban life. It showed that some of our assumptions about primitive societies were flat out wrong. And it reminded us that the Earth is still holding secrets, huge ones. Even today, new discoveries are popping up in the Angkor region. Researchers believe there are still vast areas left to scan, more temples, more infrastructure, possibly even more cities hidden beneath the jungle canopy. It's like Angkor is slowly coming back to life, one laser scan at a time. And what does that tell us? That history is messy, and memory is fragile. Empires rise, cities fall, and sometimes the greatest civilizations are the ones we forget until the Earth decides we're ready to remember them. So next time you're flying over some green, endless jungle, remember, there could be an entire city under there, one that built temples to the stars, one that ruled an empire, one that vanished without a final word. And all it takes is a laser and a bit of curiosity to bring it back.
The Amazon's underground cities. For centuries, explorers called the Amazon the Green Hell. Thick, humid, full of biting insects and things that slither in the night. The kind of place you hike into and maybe never hike out of. It was wild, it was vast, and as far as most archaeologists were concerned, it was no place for cities. The rainforest, they said, was too harsh, too unstable, too poor in nutrients for any complex civilization to survive there, let alone thrive. They were wrong. So wrong. Because beneath the trees, under layers of roots and leaves, the jungle has been hiding a secret. Cities. Real ones. Big ones. Not just huts or tribal camps. We're talking structured, urban-style settlements. Roads, plazas, canals, geometric layouts, networks of earthworks stretching for miles. But the kicker? Most of these places were completely invisible until just a few years ago. Let's rewind to the 1500s. When Spanish explorer Francisco de Orellana first journeyed down the Amazon, he claimed to have seen large cities with thousands of people, connected by roads and ruled by powerful leaders. Everyone back in Europe thought he was full of it. Jungle fever, probably, or maybe just trying to make his trip sound cooler than it was. And for hundreds of years, Orellana's story was written off as fiction, just another explorer exaggerating to impress the king. Turns out, he wasn't lying. We just weren't looking hard enough. Fast forward to the 21st century, enter the age of LiDAR and satellite imaging. Once again, we strapped lasers to planes and started scanning the rainforest canopy. And what showed up? Perfect circles. Long, straight roads, raised platforms, even complex ditch and mound patterns that matched ancient city planning. Not randomly scattered either, but arranged in patterns, connected, like neighborhoods in a well-thought-out suburban layout, just 1,500 years old. One of the most jaw-dropping discoveries came from a region in Bolivia and Brazil known as the Llanos de Mojos. Archaeologists used LiDAR to scan an area where some raised mounds and strange ditches had been spotted before. What they found was staggering. An entire network of ancient cities, some with multi-story buildings, massive causeways, and evidence of complex social organization. One site, called Cotoca, had defensive walls, platform pyramids, and massive urban planning. Another, Landivar, looked like a full-on mini metropolis. Oh, and some of these cities are older than Machu Picchu. Just let that sink in. And it doesn't stop there. Further north in the Brazilian Amazon, near the Xingu River, researchers found clusters of circular settlements arranged around central plazas, connected by roads, canals, and bridges. They even had massive fish weirs and artificial ponds. It wasn't just about living, it was about managing the land, engineering food systems, and controlling water like pros. This flips the whole narrative on its head. The Amazon wasn't some untouched wilderness. It was, in many ways, a giant human-shaped ecosystem. Indigenous cultures didn't just survive in the rainforest, they sculpted it, they tamed it, they lived with it, not against it. In fact, modern soil scientists studying the Amazon found something incredible. Terra preta, or dark earth. It's a type of soil that's unusually rich and fertile, made by ancient humans, mixing charcoal, animal bones, and compost. Think about that. The rainforest, which today struggles with poor soil, once had vast stretches of man-made fertile earth. That means the land was designed to feed people. Not just a few hundred, but thousands, maybe even millions. So why didn't we find these cities sooner? Simple. The jungle is sneaky. Unlike stone monuments in Egypt or Greece, most Amazonian structures were made of earth and wood. Over time, they collapsed, decayed, and were swallowed whole by the rainforest. Plus, it's hard to dig in a place where everything either bites, stings, or melts your gear. And then there's the awkward truth.
For a long time, many archaeologists didn't want to believe this was possible. There was a colonial mindset, an idea that indigenous people in the Americas couldn't possibly have built real cities, that complex civilization was something that happened in Europe or Asia, not in the middle of the Amazon. But the evidence says otherwise. The people who lived in these lost Amazonian cities weren't just surviving, they were innovating, building smart, planning ahead, creating networks that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. They had art, ritual, engineering, and possibly a deeper connection to the land than most modern cities could dream of. And just like that, they were gone. We still don't know exactly why. Some cities may have been abandoned due to disease brought by European contact, long before the Spanish even reached those regions. Others may have collapsed due to internal shifts, climate changes, or just the natural ebb and flow of civilizations. What's clear is this: the Amazon didn't just eat their buildings, it devoured their memory. For centuries, all that remained were legends, local stories, mysterious mounds, and a few forgotten carvings. Until now. Because with every new scan, every fresh map, we're peeling back the green curtain. We're realizing that the Amazon wasn't just a backdrop for adventure movies or survival documentaries. It was once a thriving, buzzing web of cities and cultures. And we've only scratched the surface. Most of the Amazon hasn't even been scanned yet. Archaeologists estimate there could be hundreds, maybe thousands of undiscovered urban centers still sleeping beneath the leaves. Let that sink in. Every time a tree sways, every time a jaguar slips through the underbrush, every time a drone passes overhead, there could be a lost city right beneath it. What else have we missed? What else is hiding in the dirt, waiting for the light? In the next chapter, we'll move from the jungle to the sea. Because if you think it's wild what the rainforest can hide, wait until you see what the ocean has been keeping secret.